Hey, good morning, team. Welcome to week 4 of organizational change. And we are halfway through. Yeah, this is the midterm. So this week, we have some reading to do, of course. There's a couple of good videos, and one is very relevant to something we were discussing in the discussion board. I think it was Ryan who mentioned about outside people coming in and taking a look. And we had a conversation thread going on that. And that a little bit, think about this on the discussion of climate versus culture and what's the difference and why sometimes we look for the outside opinion on a change initiative or other type of guidance. We look for that consultant, that outside source, because a lot of times we get contaminated by our culture. We get very in the groove. This is our daily routine, and we've talked about routines, how employees don't like to be out of their routines. And so sometimes we don't look for, not that we don't look for, but we don't notice opportunities, especially opportunities that could be in our industry or outside of it, yeah, or outside our industry. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. So, for instance, right, let's say I'm doing curriculum development and I am in the submarine force, right? What I used to do. And that's what I do. I'm writing my curriculum for the submarine force. And at no time do I ever look for outside sources on different formats of curriculum design because the Navy has a set standard. They like it using, let's say, Gagne's 9 events of curriculum. I'm sorry if I'm talking shop, Gagne's 9 events of curriculum standards, but there's all other different types of curriculum standards that could be better. But I don't know that because this is the policy, this is the way I train, this is, so sometimes it takes an outside source to look around and say, why are we doing it this way? Usually the response you get from the organization is that this is the policy, it's written down, and it's the way it's always been. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's the best way. It doesn't mean it's the effective way. It just means it's the way we've been doing it. So there's a good video on that. And so think about that. So climate versus culture. Well, a lot of times you'll hear the term command climate or workplace climate. The climate is a snapshot of the culture, right? It is a snapshot in time. The climate is hot, it's cold, it's negative, it's positive, but the culture is made up of many different things. And this isn't an organizational culture class, but we could talk a lot about this, because there are underlying policies and assumptions and procedures that make up the whole culture. And yeah, the Edgar Schein and Gert Hofstede. If you really wanted to see something fascinating, type up Hofstede's organizational culture. And it'll give the whole explanation on what our underlying assumptions are at the workplace. So for instance, if I speak up against my boss and tell him that he's wrong, he's going to fire me. Well, that's an assumption unless that boss has really fired somebody for speaking up. And that shapes the whole culture. So a lot of times when people go in and say, we're going to fix the culture, all they do is fix what they see. Don't speak up against the boss. Well, why? So those are things to think about with your change, right? Are you going to change something in the culture? Okay, so this week, assignments, right? We have our discussion boards. We have that project checklist. And I noticed I was just going through the grade book, and there were some people that still have zeros from week 1 and week 2, and they're usually these checklists. So go through and if you have a 0, get them done. It's going to affect your grade, right? We have a midterm, and I just made it available. It's open this week till next Wednesday. I think it's the 1st is next Wednesday at midnight, but it's available week 4. The dates are there. It's open book. Gave you 2 hours. You should have no problem. Okay? So also, I put in the announcements about the final project. And there is a little layout there in the final project. A sample, this is how your paper should be laid out. And anyways, it's time to start thinking about that. So the final project is going to be a change initiative that you want to do at your place of employment. If you are unemployed, I will accept home life or church or something like that. So anyways, this change that you want to do, and is it small? Is it at the tactical level? Remember I was talking about that last week? Or is it at the strategic level? And I gave some people some feedback on their vision statements, right? To make it a little bit more clear. So the method to my madness here. So if you are doing a change, let's say to computer screens, because I'm looking at one, and your vision statement says that your company is going to supply the best hard drives to the consumer. Why is your change about computer screens? Your vision statement is about hard drives. So your change is at the strategic level because you're going to have to change your vision statement to include computer screens. Does that make sense? Because a lot of times we want to do a change and it's outside of our scope of our business. And we see companies fail all the time. It drives investors crazy when Philip Morris, a cigarette company, buys Kraft Foods and starts selling salad dressing. They may be successful for a little bit, but it's not their vision. It's not their mission, So anywho, that's something to think about. Go by the guidelines. Everybody will do fine. Go through the grade book. If you have any zeros, submit those assignments, and I'll get you some feedback. Okay, I hope everybody's still enjoying their summer, getting things done. And if you have any questions, as always, get in contact with me.